Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of parenTEAing with the Selders. So, I think my parents are pretty amazing, and from you all's responses, you think so as well. So, we decided that every once in a while, we would spill some parent tea regarding the ways in which they do things around here. So, our first episode is discipline. So, hello, Dad and Mom.
Hey.
Hello.
So, first question, what do you think discipline is?
I think discipline is a way of training an individual, and we're talking about children. So, a system or a way of training a child to produce a certain type of behavior or to do a certain type of thing. It's about teaching them how to follow rules, how to obey order, and how to have structure. That's what I believe discipline is.
Cool. Mom?
I agree with Dad. I think that we parent with the end goal in mind. We always parent thinking about, okay, who are these little people going to grow up to be one day? And discipline is the system and structure, the practices, the routine that you use to bring about what you consider is that end goal.
Great. Okay, question number 2. What are some ways you feel you've instilled discipline within your children?
There are a lot of things I believe that we tried to do, and I believe that some things were successful. For instance, we always talked about how important it was for our children to do certain chores.
What?
Absolutely. Things like washing dishes, folding tiles at an early age, feeding chickens,
Cutting grass,
sweeping floors,
washing
cutting
cars.
grass. All those things are practices and systems that we believe were important to put in place so that our children grow up to be responsible. I mean, you can't expect children to just automatically be responsible if they're not given, certain expectations and rules that they need to follow. So I think those are some of the things that we try to do to help our children recognize, yes, you have responsibility.
Mom?
I think we were great with the routines, the practices, the work ethic. I think we definitely try to do a very good job at setting an example of disciplined people and having a certain expectation of what you will do based on what we've said and what we've decided. In addition, we believe that consequences, I always say consequences are the ICU of discipline. And I use the word ICU, yes, intensive because it's important, but I think consequences should always be immediate. Mm-hmm. They should always be consistent, and they should always be uncomfortable. And uncomfortable is different for different children. You have to figure out what uncomfortable is for each particular child. But I believe, with all my heart, that when you see a behavior that you consider is unacceptable, or you see a behavior or a practice in your child that you feel is not what it is you've desired, or it is not what it is you've told them you wanted. If your consequence is immediate, if it is consistent, and if it is uncomfortable, I promise you there will be a change in behavior.
Every time.
Absolutely. And if it's not happening, it's because either it's not immediate. You waiting until next week talking about, oh yeah, what you did last week. Mm-hmm. It's not consistent, which means sometimes you implement a consequence. Sometimes it needs to be consistent. Every time you do A,
you are consistent. B
will happen. And then it needs to be uncomfortable because it needs to be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Okay, so third question. Let's say you had to give advice to parents who are, let's say, struggling with discipline with their children. What would you say to them?
The first thing I would say to them is, in general, I run across a lot of parents who often abdicate the responsibility of discipline to somebody else. I think it's always important for parents to be empowered to know that they have the authority and that they have the control. Because ultimately, as a parent, the whole idea behind disciplining your children is you're trying to teach them self-control. So I think it's important for parents to always know that they have been given the God-given right to have the authority to rear their children. Children can't do it on their own. The other thing is, I think it's always important to keep in mind that when you as a parent convey or give any hint to your children that you don't have control, you have lost control. And that's an important thing, because a lot of parents don't know. Children desire structure. They see it as love. And so I believe it's important for parents to always believe and know that they have the God-given right to have the authority.
Great takeaway. Mom?
Yes. In here, control is not a dirty word. Fear is not a dirty word. I have no problem with saying we are in control
At all.
and I believe that is the position that God has given to us. Little people are not in control in here.
And as an adult, your behavior has to back that up.
Your behavior has to back that up. And I believe to a certain extent you need to be scared, because if you ain't scared, we got a problem. My advice to parents would be, if you are seeing something in your child or in your children, especially because I get this a lot from parents of little people. If you're seeing your 3-year-old, your 4-year-old, your 6-year-old, and you're seeing some behavior, a lot of people say, a strong will. The first thing you need to do is you need to check yourself. You need to check your parental practices and your responses to that behavior. I think all children come here with the ability to be strong-willed, or with the ability to be disrespectful, or with the ability to be disobedient. But based on how a parent reacts or does not react to that thing, it determines how it grows or how it intensifies. I think as a parent, you see a behavior and you either fan that thing, you know what I mean? A flame of a behavior, you either fan it or you squash it. And it determines how it progresses over time. So when you see a 17 or 18-year-old who's funky, chances are when that kid was 2 or 3 years old, they were a little smelly and nobody did anything about it. And so that's what I would say. I think you start with yourself and you ask yourself, what is it I'm doing to reinforce behavior that I really don't care for? Or what is it I'm not doing to bring about the behavior I desire within my kids?
That's an important point. One other thing I add to what you just said about reinforcement, a lot of times parents are not always thoughtful about what they're reinforcing. Like if a child does something, how you respond, you're either reinforcing for them to continue to do that or not. And so I think that reinforcement is key, just like you said.
And I think, in teaching kindergarten, one thing I realized is the adult-child relationship, especially in parenting, is often a tug of war, because the child is trying to see, who's gonna quit first, who's gonna give in first, who's gonna relinquish some power first. And as a parent, I think you have to convince those kids that, you know what, I'm gonna win.
Every
like
time.
you ain't about to win, because I'm gonna win. Because I am the adult, I am the person who bear the responsibility, and you're gonna do what I decide you're gonna do. And when you start making your own decisions and having your own opinions, it's only because I've allowed you to have those. Which means I'm still in control.
Great responses, great wisdom. Please join us for the next episode of parenTEAing with that Selders crew as the Selders parents spill more tea.
Bye,
Peace.
y'all.
Good night. Good night.